production begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to the Community Foundation Spotlight here on PAC 14. And with me today is very lovely. I better say that or I'll get in trouble because she works at the Community Foundation with me, is Erica Joseph, the Vice President of Community Investment. And I am Doug Wilson, the President of the Community Foundation, and we're here today to talk to you about the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore. So, Erica, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved with the Community Foundation?
I'd love to. I'd like to start by thanking you for giving some time today for highlighting the Community Foundation. I grew up on the Lower Eastern Shore, spent my whole life here, and after I graduated, I was fortunate enough, it'll be 10 years this August, to join the team at the foundation, and I've been working with the group and with all the great volunteers ever since.
And your wonderful boss.
And my wonderful boss.
Yes. The Community Foundation is kind of a different kind of an animal with respect to other nonprofits in this area. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it's different? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Most people who've grown up here or live here, work here, know that we have a really diverse and wonderful group of charitable organizations that serve our community.
Mm-hmm.
And the Community Foundation is a really nice sort of nexus for donors and volunteers and charitable groups, because we don't necessarily focus on one specific cause or mission. Our mission is to promote philanthropy and to help strengthen our communities, and so we do that by working with organizations of all shapes and sizes, doing all different types of program work, working with youth, working with animal welfare, working with health and human services, education. So we get to help sort of move forward in a positive way in all of those areas, which is a little bit different than some other nonprofit organizations.
And how does the foundation interact with these nonprofits? What does it really do for them?
Well, I think one of the most common, places that we can help support nonprofits is through our various grant programs. We distributed more than $5 million last year alone, primarily to support local charitable causes and scholarships. So that's one of the most common ways that people know us. But we also have a number of endowment funds that benefit local nonprofit agencies. We also do a variety of training and professional development programming and networking events to help understand community needs, help to promote collaboration among nonprofits, including ourselves. And so we try to not just be a check writer, although that's certainly something that is often appreciated on behalf of donors and the Community Foundation as a whole, but also in helping to sort of network and build that broader nonprofit community.
Great. I know that the Community Foundation just finished its strategic plan, a new one, and it's going to be going for the next 4 to 5 years. Can you tell us a little bit about that or some of the highlights from it?
Well, I think what we were able to do in this process for the strategic planning was to really look at where we are and the wonderful successes that we've had during our past 30 years now. We're coming into our 30th anniversary next year.
Right.
And look at ways that we could focus on our core mission and try to figure out where we want to set the bar to move ourselves forward over the next 10 years or so. And we looked at that from our nonprofit services perspective, from our donor and philanthropic services, what we do to help support charitable giving in the community. Also, we looked at it from the perspective of our marketing and outreach, really helping people better understand what we do and how we can help maximize their work, either as a donor, as a volunteer, or as a nonprofit partner agency. And so it really touched on a lot of areas, but I think brought together all of the moving parts, so to speak, and gave us some really good focus.
Great. You mentioned the Nonprofit Resource Center. What is that?
The Nonprofit Resource Center is one of the facilities that we house within our building. Of course, it has our staff offices, but the Nonprofit Resource Center includes a resource center itself with publications, print materials, and online access to the foundation directory. It also provides meeting space that we make available free of charge for local organizations to host board meetings or events that they have that they might not have the ability to host on site themselves. And it's a really nice feature. We've had thousands of people visit the Community Foundation because of that service that we provide.
Just to use that?
Just to use the meeting space.
Wow, that's lovely. We know that volunteer organizations, not-for-profit organizations, don't have a lot of money, by and large, and so can't support staff. So they use and rely heavily upon volunteers. How does the Community Foundation support volunteers?
Well, you make such a great point. I mean, anybody that's worked with a nonprofit knows that paid staff alone cannot do all the work that needs to be done to help meet the needs that they're trying to address. And so the Community Foundation, along with really many other partners in the community, supports volunteer activities. We organize service projects. We've partnered with, most recently we did a youth service activity with the Hazel Outdoor Discovery Center.
I know that the Community Foundation accepts nominations every year for awards and recognitions that they give out at their annual meeting, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
I'd love to. The annual meeting that's held in early November each year. This year I think it's November 1st. It's always the first Friday. It's where we highlight the work of the foundation, but also recognize volunteers and leaders in the community, both from an individual perspective, but also from a nonprofit perspective. So this year, and all the nominations are due September 23rd, we do the Frank Morris Humanitarian Award that recognizes an individual in the community. We also provide recognition through the Mary Gladys Jones Volunteer of the Year Award, and we recognize a nonprofit organization through the Richard A. Henson Award for Nonprofit Excellence. And all of those are due September 23rd to the foundation, and we have a volunteer committee of great people from the community to help us select from the many worthwhile nominations that we receive.
Lovely. I want to take just a second to reintroduce that we have with us today Erica, and Erica is the Vice President of Community Investment from the Community Foundation. And you are watching the Community Foundation Spotlight here on PAC 14, and I'm your host, Doug Wilson, the President of the Community Foundation. And so we'll move on.
Sounds good.
All right. I know that there are some application deadlines coming up for grants and that kind of thing, and why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the Community Foundation, a great resource is our website, which is www.cfes.org. That's where we post information on all of our deadlines for grant applications, for upcoming events, anything that we have going on. But in the very near future, we have a deadline for our Community Needs Grant Program, which is the largest opportunity that we have for distributing program funds each year. So nonprofits from throughout the Tri-County area, from any mission area that is doing charitable work, can apply for those grants. We make grants available of around $5,000 or less, and we have a committee that reviews all of those proposals, and we'll do site visits with the nonprofits that apply, and all of the application information is available on the website.
Lovely. You mentioned earlier that every year, or at least this past year, the Community Foundation awarded $5 million in grants. Where does that money come from?
Well, one of the sources is through our various grant programs, but that's only a portion. The Community Foundation is an interesting animal, as you mentioned before, because it's made up of a lot of different funds. So we have about 550 different funds at the Community Foundation, and everyone has a unique story and a unique purpose. And so we have donor advisors who are very active individuals or businesses in the community that do charitable giving in partnership with the foundation. We have scholarship funds that awarded, I think last year, over $200,000 to local students. We distribute money on behalf of agency funds that are held with the Community Foundation. And it's just, an interesting mix. And so donors, individuals, families, businesses, those entities invest in the community with the Community Foundation by establishing those funds. And the objective is that for the most part we hold endowments. And
Right.
so those funds are held forever, and we are able to distribute the income that's earned from them. And so that's building a resource for the future in this area, and also providing last year over $5 million in direct support.
But how does a person, if they want to start a fund, what do they need to do?
Well, there are a lot of different funds at the Community Foundation, as I mentioned, and the way to get started is to talk with one of our staff. You, me, BJ Summers, we're all great places to start, so that we can talk about what the individual's interests and passions are. Do they want to start a scholarship fund? Are they interested in supporting a fund that already exists for the nonprofit organization that they're most passionate about? The key to remember is that anyone can start a fund at the Community Foundation, and anyone can give to any fund that we currently hold at any time. And so the focus is just for us on trying to make as many connections in the community so that people know what the foundation is about, the diversity of the funds that we hold, and that if there's something that's near and dear to your heart that we're not currently supporting, or that you think needs additional support, then we can help you start a fund to do just that.
Right. Although we encourage people to go to the website, they can get a lot of information there, but we love people to call us.
Right.
Because that's where the real connection is made, and so we can understand their desires, their needs, their wants, their desires, I guess.
Yeah, that's the real fundamental point about the Community Foundation is it's not our Community Foundation, the staff that works there or the board. Everything that we're doing every year is because there's a donor out there who started a fund or helped build a fund that wants to do that charitable work in the community. And so that's our task every single year, is to make sure that those donor wishes are being met.
Right. And anybody can do this.
Anybody can do this.
Anybody can do this. So you have organizations do it. You have even not-for-profits starting funds, right? And individuals and corporations and schools and
Absolutely, and I think the other point is that with all of the funds that are currently in place at the Community Foundation, there are over 500. Anybody can make a contribution to any one of those anytime. So if you don't want to establish a fund or don't feel like it's the right time for you to do that, you can make a contribution to an organization that you care about that has a fund with the foundation.
Wow.
One of our most recent and sort of most unique funds is the Women's Fund.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought it up.
We just awarded grants recently from the Women's Fund, and I think what's so unique about that is that it's a group of people, not specified. You can sort of become a part of it by being proactive and joining the Women's Fund. You don't even have to be a woman necessarily, although that tends to be our most common demographic. But the focus of that fund is to help establish and create resources to support programs that serve women and girls.
Right.
And so all of the contributors to that fund become part of the Women's Fund and can be involved in helping award grants or being on the leadership advisory team. And so that's just a really unique opportunity that's relatively new to us, but it just shows the power sort of that people have in coming together and doing things collectively.
Okay. I know that you've said endowment several times. Some people out there may not know what an endowment is really. And then we have these donor-advised funds and legacy funds and other kinds. Can you just briefly touch on what those are and what the differences are?
Well, sure I can. The endowment fund, that's really the primary core focus of the Community Foundation, because that's our emphasis is, establishing a fund where the initial gift that is made is preserved forever, versus another gift that you might make to an organization where, and for good reason, you make the gift and it's put right out into the community. People who establish endowment funds, they want to have that permanence so that they know that this year that fund will award grants to serve the purpose that it's been established for, but then also next year. And 10 years from now and 20 years from now and 50 years from now, that gift will still be distributing funds in the community. And really the power of endowment is that over the course of time, as those funds grow and as the investments benefit the fund, what you see is that the ultimate gift is far larger than what the initial gift is. So more money goes out into the community over time, and then the endowment is still there and has grown.
Right. That's terrific. We know that the Community Foundation is a 501c3. It is a charity on its own, and it basically serves Wicomico, Worcester, and Somerset County. But I know that we send checks to Cucamonga, California, and Alaska, and
you mentioned the donor-advised funds, and that's really where that stems from. You know, our focus as a community foundation, as any community foundation that's serving, we serve a geographic area, and that's true for community foundations across the country. Our service area is primarily Somerset, Wicomico, and Worcester, and so what that does is that helps us focus our grant making activity through our community needs grant program, our education grant program, which also has a deadline of later in August. I think it's the August 23rd. We offer those once a year. So we target all of that grant making locally to support local needs and efforts. But we know that some of the donors that come to our community or that are part of our community but maybe went to college elsewhere or have family or connections in other parts of the world, they want to make a difference in those communities as well. And so with a donor-advised fund, they're able to make grants right here on the Lower Eastern Shore, but also make grants to any charitable organization. And we can help facilitate that for them.
And we can only give grant money to charitable organizations, correct?
That's one of the services that we help provide for donors, because especially in our current environment, there are a lot of organizations that are doing wonderful work that are charitable organizations. There are also some, unfortunately, that just haven't met those designations, and so we can be sort of an extra layer of confidence for donors that their dollars are really doing what they expect. We help do some due diligence to make sure that the organizations are charitable, that the programs that are being supported are being successful, and we can sort of help to give the donors that confidence, especially if they are not as closely aligned with the organization.
Well, I know that there is one big event coming up. It's going to be here before we know it. It's actually not going to occur until next year. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what other milestones might be heading our way?
Right, we're really gearing up for our 30th anniversary, which is calendar year 2014. The Community Foundation was started in 1984. And so we have a lot of different activities planned to celebrate that, as you might imagine. But one of the first events that we want people to be aware of is our 30th anniversary gala, which will be taking place in May. And so we have the information. We're doing save the dates for that. Check out our website for all the information. And we just hope that as many people as possible can make sure to get it on their calendar so that they can help us celebrate.
That's right. You know, the Community Foundation is a real jewel that we're very fortunate to have here on the Lower Shore. A lot of places around the country, geographies if you will, don't have community foundations. In fact, there are only like 500 in the United States. So you can see they're spread about quite a bit. And so they perform a very vital function in terms of supporting the infrastructure and plans and missions of not-for-profits, which serve a host and a variety of interests and services that are provided to communities. And so we're very pleased that we're here. One last thing, if there